Good morning, and welcome to the Mid-Maine Chamber of Commerce and Thomas College Business Breakfast Series. My name is Kim Lindloff, and I'm the President and CEO of the Mid-Maine Chamber. It's my pleasure to welcome you here this morning. Before we begin, I want to thank our 2019 Business Breakfast Series sponsors. They include AT&T, Cross Insurance, People's United Bank, Nicholson, Michaud & Company, CPAs, O'Donnell, Lee, McCowan & Phillips, attorneys at law. The Morning Sentinel is our print media sponsor, and the Mix 107.9 is our radio sponsor. We hope that you had a chance to visit our spotlight tables in the back of the room, Maine General Health and Bacon Farm Maple Products. Thank you both for being here today. I also want to thank Crossroads-TV. They tape and rebroadcast this business breakfast on channel 1301 on Spectrum. They also tape it and put it up on YouTube, so if there's something that you might have missed or you want to share this with your colleagues, we can direct you to that YouTube channel. We have put evaluation forms on your table, and we hope that you'll take a minute to complete those. Our Business Breakfast Series Planning Committee uses that information to determine what we're going to have on our schedule next year, and we also provide that feedback to the speaker to help her improve or get some feedback on what she's doing well. We have a few upcoming chamber events. On Wednesday, April 17th, we're hosting a Meet the Reps at the Bill and Joan Althon Mainstream Commons in the Chase Forum from 5:30 to 7. This is free and open to the public, and it's sponsored by Kennebec Savings Bank and Central Maine Growth Council. On April 25th, our annual awards celebration will be held at Enchanted Gables in Oakland from 5 to 8. We have 8 very deserving award winners, and we'd love for you to share in that celebration. Tickets are limited, so please contact the Chamber if you'd like to attend. Our next business breakfast is right here on May 2nd, featuring Ellen Belknap, President of SMRT Architects and Engineers. We'll be right in this room again. And this is our last business breakfast before the summer break, so I hope you can make it. It's now my pleasure to introduce Joy McKenna, who's going to introduce our speaker today. Joy?
Sorry, I should have been closer to the front. I'm really happy that you all are here today. Thank you for joining us. I think you're in for quite a treat. Megan Hart is the Operations Manager of Patient and Guest Relations at Maine General Health. She works with many support service teams at Maine General to make business processes more efficient. Megan believes that by creating efficient processes across the organization, the company will increase financial stability and patient satisfaction. Making processes better for individuals responsible for them will also provide an environment where employees are more satisfied coming to work each day. When we can remove big frustrations from everyday work, we're going to be more satisfied in our day. When Megan is not at work, she is a wife and mother of 3 young children. She enjoys running and spending time with her family. And yes, she spends just as much time at home making things efficient as she does at work. Good job. Megan holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Liberal Studies from University of Maine, Augusta, and a Master's in Business Administration from Hudson University. Please join me in a warm welcome for Megan Hart.
Good morning. So as she introduced, my name is Megan Hart, and I'm the Operations Manager at Maine General, and I've been there for about 7 weeks now, and the transition's going very well, and I'm not just saying that because my boss is here. Today, I'm actually going to talk to you about a book called Stop Starting and Start Finishing, and this is what the book looks like. And it's about 30 pages long, but it has really big words and nice pictures, so it only takes about 10 minutes to read, but it has really great content. So it's a good one to use with your teams if you do want to bring this back to your workplace and put in place some of these concepts. It's, most people can spend 10 minutes on it versus a chapter book. They're not going to spend the time on that. And it's about, whoops, back one. It's about $10 on Amazon. So it's pretty reasonable. And it basically, this book follows a character named Justin, and he is an IT project manager. And this kind of goes through a project management technique that is a lean, Kanban, agile method. So the book starts out with this character, Justin, and he has a problem. His team is not able to meet their deadlines. They're having trouble getting things out to their customers with predictability and consistency. They're having some quality issues, and things just aren't going well. And Justin's done things like forced his team to work overtime. He's offered them bonuses to make them more efficient. He's put more and more things on their plate, hoping it'll give them some incentive to move faster, and those things aren't working. And so Justin kind of had an aha moment when he was watching his printer. And his printer was printing out the pages one after the other. So one page would come out, and then the next page would come right out after it, and then the next page and the next page. And it was a nice, smooth process, and it was consistent, and it always gave him the same result. And when he thought, well, you know, if I jam a bunch of paper into the printer, is that going to make it work faster and better? Probably not. It's going to overload it, and it's going to probably stop working altogether. So he said, well, why am I doing this to my team? Why am I expecting adding more things to my team's plate is going to make them work faster? Well, and the answer is it's not, right? It's not working for him. So he realized that his team and any team and every person, they have a limited capability. They can only handle so much at once. We can only do so many things at one time before we start getting overloaded. We get stressed, we get burnt out, we produce poor quality of work because we're constantly like, I gotta get this done so I can get my next thing on my plate and start working on that. So you're just not being productive, you're multitasking, and we've all learned that multitasking isn't efficient. It's actually the opposite of that. So what are we gonna do about it? What did Justin decide he was going to do? He decided he was going to visualize the work that his team had on their plates. So basically, you can create a board, and this is technically called a Kanban board, but buzzwords can be overwhelming for some people or scary, or that sounds really complicated, so I'm just not going to do that. So you don't have to call it that. Call it a project board or whatever you want to call it. You don't have to call it anything. And you're going to take all of your projects or your work, and you're going to put them on the board. And you're just gonna put them out there, no matter how scary it looks as you start getting them on there. And you're gonna put them into columns. And this is a typical setup where you have your backlog, what's up next, what I'm in process, what I'm currently working on, and then what is complete. And you may notice when you first do this that you have a ton of things in progress, maybe a few things in the up next, a bunch in your backlog, and not as much in your complete column. And that's okay. You just still want to get it all out there to visually see what you've got going on. Because like Justin, he has a lot of knowledge work that he does. His team isn't like in a manufacturing world where you can physically see the work on your desk or piling up in stations. His stuff is on the computer, in their heads, maybe there's some paper, but you can't see it physically. So to see what you got going on, this is how you're gonna do that. And you don't have to use an app or software or a computer to do that. You can simply have a whiteboard with sticky notes on it. And really the electronic versions, that's what they are. They're electronic versions of a whiteboard with sticky notes. And if you have more than one person on your team and you want to see what each person has, you can do different colors for each person. It's that simple. And then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to set your WIP limits or your work in progress limits. And you're going to determine how many things you can work on at once in each column. Now your backlog may not have a limit because you're just going to put every idea that comes up there, and then later you're going to manage what you're going to pull forward. But the columns like up next and you're in process, and definitely you're in process, you want to have a limit on that. So what that means is I can only have, in this example, 3 items that I'm working on right now. I can't start working on a 4th item until I've moved one of those items over to my complete column. So I'm going to stop starting and start finishing my projects. And you can also set those limits per person as well. So you can say, Joe can handle 3 projects at a time, and Sally can handle 5, and Jane can handle 2, just because of the type of work that they do, maybe their specialty or experience. So if Joe already has 3 projects, and his limit is 3, we're not going to give him a 4th project right now until he moves one of his 3 into the complete column. And you can also put a limit on your entire board, so you can have an overall board limit. And when you're first putting all your stuff on your board, and you've got, a bunch of stuff in the in process and not so much in up next and not so much in complete, you can do a couple of different things. One, you could work to get all of those things completed and moved over till you get to your WIP limit, or you can rearrange what you've got going on. So just because I currently have this task in my in process doesn't mean I have to keep it there. I could move it back a column to, okay, that's not as important, that's going to be next, this one I have to get done first. So you kind of rearrange what you have on your plates based on the board. And what this is going to do is it's going to allow you to start finishing tasks or projects before moving on to a new one. It's also going to help highlight some of your bottlenecks, because as you're starting to work through the boards and you're having those conversations, whether it's a morning huddle or your weekly status update or biweekly or whatever you set for your check-ins, you're noticing that I have had this card in my in process for a week now and it's not moving forward. So as a team, you can help swarm those bottlenecks and work together to get them move forward. It's going to allow you to avoid multitasking, because that's not what we want to do. That's not efficient. We're going to improve our quality, because people aren't going to feel like I have too many things going on at once and I can't get through one thing before the next thing's already on my plate. So they're going to be able to spend more time focusing on each project or each thing individually. So you're going to improve your quality. You're going to improve your predictability. So you're going to be able to tell your customers, have a better idea of how long it really takes to get this certain project through your whole process, because it also at the same time, which goes along with that, is gives you consistency. So if you follow this process and you do this repeatedly, you're going to have consistent results. You're going to constantly producing the same quality of product, and it's going to give you an idea of how long that really takes over time. And then that it's going to create slack, which is what it sounds like. It's time when people don't have something that they're actively able to be working on because they're at their WIP limit and they're waiting on someone else to get back to them before they can move forward. Now, this slack isn't time for me to check Facebook or call my best friend and check up on Grey's Anatomy from last week. This time is to work on things like self-learning or gaining more knowledge on topics that I need to have to perform my work, or time for me to go train with a veteran team member, which I'll talk about on the next slide, to learn new tasks or skills that I can do to help my team move things forward. Or it's a time to work on those process improvements that we have that we don't have time to work on now because we have too many things on our plate. So it gives people time to do those things when they don't have something going on. And of course, also they can help each other, like we talked about swarming those problems. So it's going to free them up to have time to help swarm that problem. And then overall, your team is just going to have a much better experience in their workday. They're not going to be overloaded. They're not going to feel like they're overwhelmed all day. They're just going to be happier and more willing to do more work for you. So this is what happened to Justin when he did his board and they started working through their projects. If they got to a point where they got to a task that they weren't able to complete because only one person on the team can do that kind of a job, they would put a red triangle with an exclamation mark in the middle. And over time, their board looked like it had the measles because it had a bunch of red dots everywhere. So it allowed him to say, okay, veterans, when you get to one of these tasks that has that red triangle, you can't do it alone. You have to grab somebody else on the team and work with them so they can learn how to do this task that you're the only one able to do. And they're able to do that because that person now has some slack, right? So now they have time to go work with a veteran because they're hung up anyway on the card, so they work with them to learn that task. And then over time, hopefully you get less and less of those big red marks or those bottlenecks in your process because you have more people able to do what you need to do to get things accomplished. Okay, now we're going to stop talking and start doing an activity. So we're going to make paper airplanes, and we're not going to fly them because apparently that's a safety hazard. But we are going to work in groups of 6. So I think some tables, like you guys have 3 and there's some 5. So if you could just sit at one of the other tables to make 6. And if we have some 5s, that's okay because one person can play 2 roles. But what we're going to do is we're going to do the simulation twice. We're going to make 20 airplanes in each simulation. And there's going to be 4 people that are the workers, and they'll each have a sheet of paper that tells them what they're doing. You're going to have a quality assurance person. They're also the person that's counting the airplanes as they get completed. And then you have a person that's going to time your group. So when I say start, they'll start the timer, and then when you finish your 20th airplane, they'll stop the timer. Okay, so I'm going to hand out stuff, and then I'll re-explain a little bit before we actually start. Okay, so the stack of paper should be next to workstation 1. Workstation 1 will have the stack of paper. So each workstation has a sheet that tells them what their job is. So person 1, you're going to fold the paper in half, and then at the bottom it shows you what your paper should look like when you're done folding it. And you're going to pass it, you're just going to fold it, and then you're going to pass it over to station 2. You'll set it in their workstation. And then worker 2 is going to do their job. So worker 3, you need a pen because you have to draw a star on the plane. And then worker 4 does their task and hands it off to the QA person. The QA person, you're keeping track. So when you get to 20, you'll tell your timer to stop. Does anyone have any questions? You'll start when I say go. Are you all ready? Okay, go. Okay, so you were all already ahead of me and stopped producing around 20, except for one table had 2 extras. And they said, just in case, we made a couple extras. But in real life, obviously our goal is we don't want to make extras just in case, because that's money, right, out the door that your client asked for 20, you made 22, and now you've got these 2 spares that we don't need, so now we have to get rid of them. And sometimes that means just throwing them away. So, where did you notice some bottlenecks? Like which? The start. The start, yeah, between workstations 1 and 2 and 2 and 3. If this was real life, what might we do with our teams if we notice that workstation 1's job is super easy and, yeah.
The timer could put the stars on at
Yeah.
Sean started doing 1 and 2, but I could start.
There you go. We might rebalance what the load is on each person, right? We didn't realize that, this task takes 7 minutes and this one takes 25, and so now they're getting things piled up or maybe instead of keep piling on, you go start helping that person finish task number 2, that kind of a thing. And this was a push concept. So we're just pushing work. We're just moving forward and not really paying much attention. Just, I'm going to do my thing and move it forward, move it forward. So in simulation number 2, we're going to change things up. We're going to give you a WIP limit of 1. So the station in between the workers, that's your Kanban area, your work box, you can only have 1 work in progress at a time. So worker 1 can fold their paper, but they can't pass it into workstation 2 if there's already a plane there. Okay, so you can't pass yours forward until there's nothing there in that box. And you're going to do the same thing, you're going to time it, and all of those things.
Can we change the process?
What do you mean?
We still have to do what's on that paper in the station.
Yeah, follow the paper. Can't mix it up too much. If you want to get rid of your old planes, just put them all on this table right here that's empty, if you want. Is there? Yeah, or you can put them right in there. I can do that while you're working. I'll do that while you guys are going. When you're ready, you can start going and do your timer and all that individually.
Oh, you're not supposed to pass it until he doesn't have one in the station.
Okay, so most tables were faster the second time around. We did have one table in the back there that didn't fold correctly the first time, so they took longer this time, but that's actually a good example for me to use because sometimes when we're doing process improvements or making changes with our teams, things can go the opposite direction. And that's okay because then you learn from that, right? And then you make more changes and then you'll see it positive. So one of the things when you're studying lean is that you find you can go forward and then sometimes you go back a little bit and then you keep going forward and maybe back, but ultimately you're going forward the entire time. So it's actually a good example. And then this table used their Slack, and I'll have you share what you shared with me.
We designed a secondary plane that would certainly be more costly, but would perform at a higher level for a future sale.
So he'd used his Slack.
And it does whoop-de-whoops.
Yeah, that one does whoop-de-whoops, and the other one just goes straight and then down. So it's probably worth the extra money. And so he used his slack to work on a process improvement that he had waiting on his plate, and now he potentially can earn more money for his company and created something that he can be proud of himself and say, hey, look what I did, and have that pride. So I'm sure he'll bring that back to work and share with his group. And then some teams, like this team, improved by 1.5 minutes. And this team was 1 minute, and this team was 1 minute. And then you guys were almost 1 minute, about 45 seconds faster. So everyone improved. And usually when you do this simulation, you guys are wicked sharp. So you didn't have the work in progress like with the first round. A lot of times teams will, because they're not counting. The person that isn't counting 20. They're just going as fast as they can because they're thinking, we gotta do this fast and get as many as I can going, and they don't keep track. So you end up a lot of times with a lot of work in progress on the table during the simulation, and that's when you really have that conversation of the customer asked for 20, why did we make 75? So you'll see that if you do this type of activity with your team, you'll probably see that if they're not thinking ahead like you folks were. Yeah.
Did it seem less stressful with everybody, that there wasn't a backlog waiting or having to create? Kind of just felt a little easier maybe.
Yeah, did you guys feel that? The groups, or the stations that had a lot of work before, did you feel less stress because there wasn't a huge pile sitting in front of you to move forward? You didn't feel like, oh, I'm slacking and everyone else is staring at me. Why am I not moving faster? Yeah, he was making his own airplane. He didn't care. And we had a recordable on this table. He sliced his finger. Lost time or no? No. Okay, good. No lost time. We got him fixed up. Yeah, there were some planes you had to throw out because you can't. All right, so just to recap, what we're going to do is set WIP limits to help with our project management, and we're doing that. Why? Because it's going to help us avoid task switching, improve our quality, prevent overload, improve predictability, create that slack. And how we're going to do that is we're going to set those limits on the whole system, on the individual columns, maybe by person, have personal limits, and then having those discussions. And really, this isn't going to work if you don't have discussions or check-ins with the team. Because if you're not talking about it as a group, then you're not doing half of what this is all about. And that's, helping each other, rearranging work, swarming those areas where things aren't moving forward. You guys have any questions? Okay, thank you.
No questions at all?
It's okay.
I got a question for you. What happens when the people that want the work done say, I don't care about your work limits, get it done?
Yeah, that's when you give them this book. That's when you start trying to educate them and sharing this information and say, this is something that we're trying, please have the patience with us as we test this out. I promise you I'm going to record the results that I get and then share with you the progress that I'm seeing by using this method. So I know that might not work, but that's the best you can do, is try to help educate them and, prove them wrong by doing this and showing that it does work.
So you're in a hospital setting, and I'm at Martin's. So we deal with hurricanes, and you deal with flu season, right? So there's sometimes when the inbound is unpredictable.
Yes.
So explain that to me. Can't say that sick person can come back later.
Yeah, no. Yeah.
What comes along?
No, and it doesn't necessarily, it's not like a book that you can say every situation this is going to happen, because that's not true. There are certain areas where you can't do that. You can't set a WIP limit on how many patients that you're seeing, right? In like the ER, you can't say we're only going to see 25 patients today. It's not going to work. You can't use that kind of a concept there. So for things like that, it's more focused on, okay, I have 25 patients in the ER. What am I going to change in my process to make us able to handle those 25 patients in 8 hours? So what things are we going to improve to move people through quicker? And at the same time, though, making sure that we are giving them the best quality care that we can, and we're not skipping out on that at all. But how do we change some of the things we're doing? So how do we change the flow to make it better and more efficient? Any others?
Well, thank you so much. This is a little...